You may have a question or confusion as an audiobook creator. What to do after recording a chapter? Should you start editing your audio or process it first, and then edit it? There is no single answer to this question, it depends on the situation. We'll look at some examples together to make everything clear. Then you can decide what works best for your project. Let's start by understanding the difference between editing and processing. Editing is when you clean up your audio by removing repeated words, mistakes, filler words like or, and any extra long pauses. Processing is when you apply audio effects like normalization, noise reduction, equalization, EQ, compression, and other adjustments to improve the sound quality. Now, the big question is, do you clean up the mistakes first, or do you apply the effects first? The answer depends on your recording technique, especially what you did when you made a mistake during recording. Let's check a waveform, and try to decide what to do first. The waveform you see now is quite consistent. For this kind of waveform, it is okay to process the audio first, and edit later. Let's look at another example of audio that you must clean up before processing. To record this audio, I will use the clicker technique. It is one of the popular technique for longer recording. When you make a mistake while recording, you create a click sound. To make the click sound, many people use dog clicker or some other clicker. These clicks create tall spikes in the waveform, making it easy to find the mistakes later. Let me demonstrate this. I do not have a clicker, so I will clap my hands to make the click sound.
Welcome to this audiobook narration playlist in Audacity. In this series, I will show you how to narrate. In this series, I will show you how to narrate and produce an audiobook using Audacity, covering the complete audiobook production workflow. The focus will be The focus will be on the audiobook production workflow, which is a mystery for many people.
Now, here's the waveform of the audio I just recorded. You can see tall spikes where I added clicks. These indicate the mistakes. If I process the audio without removing these clicks, the spikes will impact the audio processing. The final audio won't sound good. I will normalize this audio to -3 dB to demonstrate the point. You should know already that normalize effect sets the peak amplitude of the recording, and all the other parts are adjusted according to the peak. You can see the waveform shrank after normalize. The talking parts also shrank, meaning the audio has become quieter. If I normalize the talking parts separately, you will see the expected behavior. You can see the selected parts grew in height after normalized to -3 dB. But previously it shrank due to the abrupt high peaks in the waveform. A click sound always makes that part of the waveform abruptly taller, and it affects the audio processing. I will delete all these high peaks, and you will see a different behavior after normalize. Ideally, when you remove the high peaks, you will know there is some error and you also clean those error as well. At this moment, I am discussing about error in talking. If you have large gaps in silent parts of the audio, then need to be reduced as well. But that is not mandatory before processing. You can reduce the gaps after processing if you wish. I will normalize it again as I have removed those high peaks and surrounding talking errors. You can see the waveform looks better after the normalize, because I removed the abrupt high peaks. I showed the processing only with normalize, but abrupt high peaks will also affect the compressor. The first rule is, if you have abrupt high peaks from a click type of sound, you have to remove it. Let's see another recording method named long pause technique. In this technique, you pause when you make a mistake, and you stay silent for a longer time than usual. Later you can see those long gaps in the waveform, and you know that you made some mistakes there. Let me show you an example. Here's the waveform of the second recording. You can see flat areas where I paused after mistakes. If I process this audio first, it won't cause major problems because the long pauses don't have anything other than the room tone. However, there are some cases where you need to remove the error parts even though you are not using the clicker technique. Let me show you an example of that. I haven't used a clicker technique for that recording, but I cleared my throat, and that is causing a higher peak than usual.
I am not employing any clicker technique. I am employing the long pause technique. And if I suddenly
sometimes coughs or clearing throats can make abrupt high peaks, and like the clicks, that hampers the processing. I will apply a normalize effect without removing those errors. You see the waveform got shorter. I will now remove those error parts and apply the normalize again. Abrupt high peaks always disrupt the functionality of normalize and compressor, and those two effects are very important for proper loudness level. You can see the waveform height now increased. That means removing those error parts gave the overall audio more space to grow. If the recording contains loud sounds, such as coughing and throat clearing, you have to remove them for optimal processing. All these talks mean there is a strong case of when to edit first. If your audio has loud spikes, clicks, or other sharp noises, start by cleaning up those first. If you use the clicker recording method, you must have to edit out those clicks first. If you are not using the clicker method but the recording still has abruptly high peaks, you must edit first. An abrupt high peak means it is much taller than the rest of the recording. If your audio doesn't have loud spikes, processing, or editing first is not a problem. For audio processing, I usually recommend these basic steps. Applying these effects correctly will take care of loudness and peak for ACX. Let me show you how to process the sample. I'll apply one of my macros, which combines all these effects in one click. The macro should be applied on a raw recording or unprocessed recording. I will undo the last change. The waveform is now raw or without any processing. The only change I made to this waveform was that I deleted some abruptly loud sounds. Otherwise, it has no audio effects in it. The basic audio processing will be done by the macro. Only noise reduction has to be done separately while you use a macro from me. I will apply the improve sound macro that does the basic processing and applies the most simple EQ for voice. The audio is now processed. I will now check the ACX values. When you apply a macro, the peak and RMS should pass the ACX check. The audio is okay according to ACX check, except for the noise floor. The noise has to be dealt with separately. The noise in this audio is much higher than it should be in the ideal case. Because I have not recorded the audio in an ideal environment. The ideal environment means usually a quiet space. In a future video of this workflow course, I will show how to deal with the noise floor. Summary and final notes. The decision to edit first or process first depends on your recording. If you see loud spikes, clicks, coughs, etc., edit those out first to avoid ruining the processing. If your audio is free of such issues, you can process it first and then edit it. That's it for this video. In the next one, I'll show you how to take care of the noise floor. You just watched a video from my audiobook production workflow course. You can purchase either the course or the AZ audiobook narration package, which includes this course and other necessary courses, tools, and assignments for audiobook narration in Audacity. I will put the links in the description. If you have any queries, please send me an email. You will find the link in the description.